Couple minutes past the hour, which is the hour of 8 back in the 239. It is the hour of 5 here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Seattle after the Cowboys-Seahawks game. Mark in the cozy confines. We'll be back together again tomorrow. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton Twitch.tv channel. Matt Moscona will join us at the bottom of the hour to talk about a really bad weekend in Louisiana for LSU and the Saints. But first, Anita Marks of 98.7 ESPN in New York, host weekdays on Daily Wager and also of Off the Marks. You can follow Anita on Twitter at Anita Marks. Anita, thanks for agreeing to do this once again. How are you?
I'm great, but it's on the mark. If it was off the mark, nobody would listen because I'd be losing people a lot of money. So it's on the mark.
It makes perfect sense to us. You know who's not on the mark, Anita? Well, at us at this time in the morning occasionally, but most certainly the New York football teams. I mean, this is as bad as it's been. Do we know just how bad everything is in New York football right now?
It's pretty bad. I mean, it goes beyond football, by the way. I mean, the Mets stink, the Knicks stink. The Yankees are tanking. You know, it looks like they're going to be the 8th seed in the postseason. I mean, things are not good here. You know, we got hit first and the hardest in regard to COVID-19. Now all our sports teams stink. It's not a pretty time here in the Northeast.
Has it been this bad for the Giants and Jets together before, though, Anita? I'm in my mid-50s. I grew up in Jersey. I'm trying to remember the last time they were both this bad at the same time. And if this is a year in which teams are tanking for a quarterback, these two franchises thought they had their quarterbacks. I mean, now everybody's wondering, does either one of them have a quarterback?
Yeah, you know, it's a great question. And I think a big reason why is because, you know, and I've said this before, I think quarterback is the most important position in all of professional sport. And we can argue, you know, starting pitcher, closing pitcher, you know, point guard, center in basketball, you know, goalie in hockey. I mean, it's a fun discussion to have, but I truly believe that it's the quarterback position. And for years, over a decade, you know, Giants were blessed. They had Eli Manning in his prime, of course, with, you know, an above average offensive line to be successful. And when the Giants stopped valuing making sure that offensive line was what it needed to be in order for Eli Manning to have success, is when the Giants started to lose football games. And for the Jets, you know, and it's really interesting because it's probably the biggest topic of discussion right now here in New York, and that is Sam Darnold a true franchise quarterback? Is he the future of the quarterback position for the Jets? No one really knows because he's under the tutelage of Adam Gase, who no one understands even why he was hired in the first place. So are we really giving Sam Darnold, can we really evaluate Sam Darnold honestly? Because he's just been dealt a bad hand for the past 3 years. We don't know. So the reason I think, you know, and you mentioned the quarterback position. I mean, this is the reason why these two franchises are struggling, is because we don't know what's going on with Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold, and we don't know if either of those guys are these franchise, you know, both these franchises' future.
And Anita, with the Jets specifically, you look at now we brought a coach in, then we brought a GM, and you know Gase is not Joe Douglas's guy. Darnold's not Joe Douglas's guy. They let Robbie Anderson go for $10 million, and he's catching balls all over the place for Carolina. David used the phrase on our show, organizational malpractice, when it comes to the Jets, because not only have they not given him offensive line, they took away the one receiver he trusted. The problem with the Jets, at least as we see it, Anita, and I don't know where you are, is that I don't know how much longer Gase lasts, if it's even through the season. When Douglas didn't even draft Darnold, I mean, we could be in tune for a total organizational reset in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Again, this is another, you know, as you mentioned, I host Sports Talk Radio here in this area, and this is another topic of discussion, and that is, you know, Adam Gase lobbied for Joe Douglas to be hired and come here in New York. You know, and there's some people who feel that Adam Gase was the main reason that McCagnon, the former general manager of the Jets, was fired. That, you know, it's a very interesting organizational culture and how the Jets are set up, right? Like, so the general manager has a direct line to the owner in the Johnson family. As we know, Woody is, you know, the ambassador of England for us right now in England. So now his brother is overseeing the team, and the head coach has a direct line to the owner, and they're both separate. Not very many organizational cultures of the 32 teams operate that way. So, you know, so what happens now since Adam Gase was such a big proponent and lobbied for Joe D to get here? Is Joe D committed to Adam Gase, even though Adam Gase isn't pulling his weight and, you know, isn't helping Sam Darnold in this offense at all? At the same time, I mean, look at their roster. Their roster is horrific. I mean, Chris Hogan was Sam Darnold's number one wide receiver coming into yesterday, and I love Chris Herndon, but, you know, he's not the end all be all. He's not a Kittle, you know. So, you know, the talent isn't there. So there's so many question marks. But, you know, in regard to the future of Adam Gase, I've seen enough to realize that that this organization needs to move on and bring somebody else in, because obviously it's not helping and it's not working with Sam Darnold. But because Adam was so instrumental in bringing Joe D here, where is there a commitment there? That's really a big question mark, and only time will tell.
Anita, do you think that Gase and the Jets are benefiting from no fans? I mean, think about how ugly Thursday night would have been if fans would be allowed for this Denver Jets game. I mean, first off, the place would be half empty, so it would look awful. They would be booing the first punt. There'd be 2,000 people with bags on their heads. Do you actually think that it's going to help Gase and this team, the fact that the environment at home when they play is not, and the same with the Giants for that matter? I mean, could you imagine what that place would have sounded like yesterday with 70,000 people? And do you think it's actually going to help these two teams, the fact that they're going to play home games before no one?
Well, you know, I'll be honest with you, you know, where we are in our, you know, economical environment, you know, with so many people unemployed and whatnot, you know, there's so many people I know personally that had to give back their season tickets, prior to it being revealed they couldn't attend games. You know, PSLs, the state of professional sports right now, where, you know, you've got to pay to own your seat on top of paying for your tickets. People right now, you know, in this economy, they can't afford that. So that's first and foremost. And number two, I don't know how many people would show up if they were allowed to show up. I don't know. I mean, you know, I haven't seen a full packed MetLife Stadium for either the Giants or the Jets in a long time. So I mean, you know, without sounding rude, I mean, I think they're going to feel right at home, because no one really wants, I mean, and let's be honest, beyond whether you're a fan or what, like the stadium experience is not the same anymore. Heck, you know, like you could watch every single game. People are gambling. There's like 19 plus states that have legalized gambling. Everybody's playing fantasy football now. I don't enjoy going to a game. I'm invited to games all the time. I don't want to go and watch one game. I have to keep an eye on all the games. I've got money on every game. I've got money on a lot of players. I'm in 9 fantasy football leagues. I'm miserable at a game because I don't have access. You know what I mean? I don't have access. I can't watch everything. Who wants to go to games anymore anyhow? It's just, you know, your viewing experience is so immense that going to a game is more frustrating now than anything.
You know, and David, just to what Anita said, you've been talking for a long time, David, on this show. At what point do teams have to roll back prices on tickets? Because just what she said, the in-stadium experience is not what we're getting at home with fantasy and gambling. And with COVID and everything else, you wonder if this will do something to ticket prices. Anita, I want to ask you, because if you bet that much, you had a really good win this weekend. But if you're like David and I, you may have had a couple of bad beats. You know, I don't know They always say coaches don't know the spreads. I don't know if you're aware that Georgia kicked a 40-something yard field goal to go up by 27 when the spread was 26 and a half. That a little school like Liberty doesn't get point spreads because they sat on it on the 2-yard line with laying 7.5 up 2. So I am just curious, of all of the events, what was your best win of the weekend? Because there was a lot of wild fourth quarter things on both Saturday and Sunday. And what was your tough bad beat of the weekend?
That's a great question. So my favorite bet heading into this weekend was the Patriots. The line opened up at 6. It dropped to 5.5. I was a little perplexed by that. Obviously, we know they won by 16. I just felt like, the Raiders having that big win at home, all that emotion, all that excitement, their new stadium in Sin City, and then traveling east, taking on a Patriots team that had lost to Seattle the week before. And Bill Belichick, his record after losses is just ridiculous. I want to say it's like 27-8 or something like that. So that was my best bet, and that was, unfortunately, out of the 3. I typically have like 3 best bets of the week. That was the only one I won. I had the Tennessee Titans -2.5, and they did beat the Minnesota Vikings, but only by 1 point. Minnesota's defense is just horrendous, so I did not expect that game to be as tight. And the other game that I lost is I'm really, really big on what's going on with the Cardinals, and they were at home taking on a Lions team whose secondary was not good. I know that they got Galloway back, but he even said he's not 100%. So I'd like the Cardinals at home, and they lost by 3 to the Lions. I had them -5.5. So I went 1-2 this week, which was no bueno.
No.
So those were my 3 plays. But I'll tell you what, and I've already texted my producer for Daily Wager, the ESPN gambling show we do Monday through Friday on ESPN2 from 6 to 7 p.m. I told him I want to talk about the Bears. I love Nick Foles. I've been screaming at the top of the mountaintop since the season began that Nick Foles should be the starting quarterback. And sure enough, Nagy, he makes the decision and brings him in while they were down, and he brings them back and has them win. I am sold on the Bears right now. The fact that he can't go back to Mitchell. He can't. So today I'm spending my time. I'm all about futures bets. Like, for example, prior to the season starting, I put 25 to 1. I got that the Ravens are going to go 16-0. I think this Ravens team is ridiculously good. I think they dominate tonight. I don't think this is going to be a really close game. I think public money is flowing on Kansas City because of the hook, because Kansas City is getting +3.5. I don't even think it's close. So I'm really big into futures bets, and so I'm going to spend the day today. I'm going to really do a deep dive into what's going on with the Chicago Bears, winning the division, over on wins with Nick Foles. That team is night and day, and so and again, I don't feel with making the switch to Nick Foles in the third quarter and how he performed. In my opinion, there's no going back to Trubisky from this point, and so I want to believe that Nagy's going to stick with Nick. And I'll be looking at a lot of futures bets for the Bears because I do believe they make it to the playoffs.
Bears host the Colts, and then a week from Thursday, Mark, Brady and the Bucks, and it could be against Nick Foles and the Bears. That's right.
Against Nick Foles.
That's right. But it'll be Brady and
how great if Nagy puts in a Philadelphia special.
Yes.
In that game, would that be fantastic?
Where's the wager on that one, Anita?
A wager out there that we'll see a Philadelphia special play in that game.
Do you have to go heavy over on the Nick Foles touchdown receptions bet on the futures for that one?
I love it. I love it.
Anita Marks, 98.7 ESPN, weekdays on Daily Wager, 6 to 7 on ESPN2, and host of On the Mark. My apologies, Anita. Go. Okay, on the Pro Football Network.
Money this week, but I'm pretty good on the season.
And great fantasy
We've been
advice.
awful in September for years. We got through September I'm at 500. David's a little bit above 500. So as long as we start out September and we haven't cost you a bunch of money, we're usually pretty happy on this show.
It's funny. I tell people all the time, listen, if you finish the season at like 56 or 58%, that's actually really good. I think people think like if you handicap games and you wager, like you should be be 3-0 every week. It's impossible. It's just impossible. So good luck to you guys. It's always fun being on with you guys. So thank you.